You're listening to the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski,
featuring attorney, guest, and former felony prosecutor Eric Faddis.
And another piece to this that we've just heard about, and this is just allegations. This is from, again, Tommy, I believe the cousin of Doug, that was made on Court TV recently, of Ashley possibly being engaged to another man through all of this. Now, we don't know that as a fact by any. This is just the allegation that was made. And then two sides to every story. She claims that Doug was stalking her. And he, well, when we learned more about this, he did. He had a private investigator looking into her because he couldn't get a hold of her. He couldn't see his daughter. And there was no order saying that he couldn't see his daughter. He was trying to figure out where she was. As a parent, as a father, if that had been in my world, and suddenly the person you're married to just disappears with your child, it's not beyond the realm of understandability to hire a private investigator, not to stalk, but to find out where the hell your child is. This is a man who clearly had love and care for his child. His older daughter, who's an adult, has no issues with him. Said he was a loving, wonderful father. The accusations of him being this abusive monster seem to only stem from Ashley. And these sort of things don't seem to happen in a vacuum. So one side saying it's stalking, the other side, the surviving family members saying, no, he was just trying to get tabs on where his daughter was, and kind of had suspicions that she might be engaged. How is that going to be looked at? And I wonder, can that be substantiated?
Yeah, I mean, there's a dark potential interpretation from that engagement. And it's something we sort of touched on earlier, is that, possibly the conjecture is that Ashley didn't have any intention of actually getting back with Doug if she was already engaged to somebody else. And instead, was this some sort of trap? Was this some sort of lure when there just happened to be no witnesses present at the house, so that Ashley could do what she did and then tell police it was self-defense?
How damning is it going to be for her, the fact that the judge did say in the abuse hearing that there's not one centilla of truth to your story when this gets in front of the jury?
We'll have to see. We'll have to see if the criminal judge allows that family court judge's statement about Ashley's credibility, because a lot of times a judge might say a person's prior determination of the defendant's credibility should not be admitted in a subsequent trial, because the jury is supposed to decide whether about a person's credibility, whether they believe Ashley or not. So I'm not 100% convinced that damning statement will come into the trial.
How do you play this if you're Ashley at this point with those allegations, especially if that does come into the trial? Basically, your whole story has been said by multiple people to not be remotely true, and not just like your family, like courts have said this. What's your defense at this point? Do you just keep going down the same road? I'm abused and nobody believes me?
I think the battered spouse syndrome defense it still has some traction here. And I think that you get an expert up there who will talk about, in domestic violence situations, there's often not other witnesses around to corroborate what someone is saying. A lot of times when someone has been traumatized, the first thing they think of is not to take a picture or a video to preserve evidence. They're thinking about keeping themselves safe. And so I think that you sort of, as the defense, try to explain why there's an absence of physical evidence and why these allegations never led to charges for reasons other than them lacking merit.
How do you argue the inconsistencies in some of her testimony? Most specifically, the one that stands out to me is the story where she claims that Doug drew a gun on her. In one story, it came out of a waistband, and then when further questioned by investigators, it came out of a boot. And she flat out says, I witnessed it coming out of the boot. And well, over here you said it was the waistband. Well, I'm sorry, it was the waistband. That's essentially how that conversation went. That's a moment you don't forget. That's a moment that's going to be etched into your mind of anyone who's been through trauma like that. You do not forget those moments. And I'm speaking from my own experience on that. That to me seems like a really shocking inconsistency in this litany of allegations that have already, again, the court has said, we don't believe you. But to say it's a battered spouse syndrome, I've been through this here. How do you explain that one? I mean, is it just, well, it was trauma and our memories get messed up? They do, but that's a big one.
That is one of the only cards that she might have to play on that one, but it's a horrible look, right? It kind of looks like, she made this allegation and then she got all twisted up in her own lies. And when she was called on it, she kind of crumbled and just sort of agreed with whatever the officer was suggesting in the moment. And that's a horrible look, especially when we're talking about life or death. The person died here. And so I think a jury is going to say, hey, you got to be a little more solid on the facts if we're going to acquit you of this murder.
Yeah, it's going to be very fascinating to watch as this whole thing gets underway in the Black Swan murder trial of Ashley Benefield. We'll have the audio and the video and stuff for you right here.
Want to listen ad-free? Want advanced access to all of our interviews before anyone else?
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
You get every episode commercial-free.
So you can binge on true crime
until you can binge no more.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts now, or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast next.